Hey everyone, today we're going to be comparing the Patagonia Mini MLC and the Osprey Daylite 26+6 Expandable Backpack. To me, these are two of the all-time greats as far as minimal travel bags, and they've also been two of the most popular bags that I've featured on the channel, and with good reason. They just have really great feature sets. They're going to work well for all types of travel, but there's definitely going to be some similarities and differences that you want to keep in mind to find the one that's going to be best for you. So excited to dive in. Before doing so, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Danny, and on this channel we love reviewing popular travel and everyday carry gear. If you like these types of videos and you'd be interested in seeing more, please consider subscribing as it helps the channel out a lot. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump in. Starting off with the overall aesthetic, to me both of these have a more functional and slightly outdoorsy vibe, which makes sense just given the typical designs for Osprey and Patagonia's bags. They're not overwhelmingly technical though. I think they're still gonna work well in a lot of different situations. They're gonna be great for traveling. And so I don't think that either one is necessarily gonna be sleeker or, more technical or anything like that. And so really here it'll just come down to, your personal preference as far as which one looks better. And moving into the materials, both of these feel very solidly built. The exterior fabric is pretty similar. You have a recycled 300D polyester that feels like it's gonna offer a nice amount of durability and weather resistance. Beyond that, both bags are gonna offer solid components all throughout, including smooth working YKK zippers. There is a little bit of a weight difference between the two bags, but generally I think that both of these offer a good kind of weight to durability and feature ratio that is gonna still make them a nice option for traveling on a variety of airlines. And then continuing along the outside of the bag, you have attachment points on the front of both bags. So you have these little loops that are gonna be great for just clipping on additional accessories or pairing with straps along the front to just kind of secure extra things on the outside that might not fit on the inside. While we're taking a look at the front, you can see that these being larger brands, they do have prominent branding, as just tends to be the case with bags in this category. So you have the Osprey logo on the front, as well as the name of the model for the bag, the Daylite here at the bottom. And then with Patagonia, you have the large logo as well, which I know people aren't crazy about. And so I do wish that was more subtle. So you'll have a little bit of that with both of them. It'll just depend on which style you kind of feel a little more comfortable with. And also on the exterior, you have a couple of different handles that will make it easy to maneuver the bag. With the Mini MLC, you have a side handle and then a top handle. With the Daylite, you have really great top handle. It's gonna be a little bit more cushioned, so I like the style here. You have a handle on the front, so you can pick it up a little bit more easily to toss it into an overhead storage compartment, a trunk, and you also have a handle on the side. So you have kind of the extra handle here, as well as a little bit better padded handle on the top. So slight edge there to the Osprey Daylite. And for the Mini MLC, you also have a couple of attachment points along the side, some webbing here that'll pair nicely with a carabiner. As far as water bottle pockets, both of them have external pockets. With the Mini MLC, you just have one. And so, this is gonna be a nice elastic material that will be able to handle a 20-ounce water bottle comfortably. And so great to see that included. With the Daylite, you actually have dual external water bottle pockets. This one is not gonna be as tall or as spacious as the one on the Mini MLC. And so you get two of them, but they might just not be able to handle the same size items as the Mini MLC. So that'll really come down again to kind of what you prefer. I think it's nice to have the dual compartments, especially since you still have a side handle with the Osprey Daylite, but I think the sizing is a little bit more flexible on the Mini MLC. And then the last thing I'll call out while we're talking about the exterior is that both bags manage to stand up pretty well on their own. When they're packed out and the weight's evenly distributed, they have a fairly wide base, and so I've been able to place them down consistently and just reach into the bag when I needed to. Moving into the capacity, the Mini MLC is gonna come in at around 30 liters, and then the Osprey Daylite is gonna come in at 26 liters when it's compressed down, and it has the ability to expand out to 32 liters. And so both of these are gonna be able to hold an impressive amount given their layouts and the form factors. This is what makes them so nice for traveling. And so with the Mini MLC, it's gonna be a little bit taller. With the Daylite, once you expand it out, it'll start to look a little bit bulkier and deeper. And so those are sort of the trade-offs or dimensions that you'll have to keep in mind between the two. I think both of them are great carry-on friendly bags that can definitely fit in an overhead storage compartment. I've used both of these as personal items as well. I think that the Daylite, when it's compressed down, is gonna be a safer option as a personal item. It's gonna work better for the stricter airlines just because it's not as tall. If you expand it out, then in that case, it becomes more of a risky proposition. It'll still be great in an overhead compartment, but just something to keep in mind. I also think that the Daylite is gonna be a better option if you're looking for something that can work as an EDC bag, just because it's a little bit more manageable, it's a little shorter. But ultimately, I think that they can both work well for that use case. It'll just come down to whether you prefer to have something that also includes the expansion and will give you that added flexibility, or you just prefer to have something with a more fixed volume to keep things simpler. Continuing with the harness system, so far both bags have been comfortable to wear. Neither is going to have the most robust harness compared to some of the other travel bags on the market, and that's one of the things that also helps keep the weight more manageable. I still think that they do a good job of offering a nice amount of padding on the straps. They're both going to offer breathability. They have good padding on the back panel. They have a different approach to the back panel styling, but with the Mini MLC, you have the elevation here, good padding, breathable mesh, same breathable mesh here on the Osprey, and it feels like you have a little bit more rigidity here, or the padding itself feels more rigid. You're still gonna have plenty of breathability. And so I think that they've both been great. I might give a slight edge on the shoulder straps to the Daylite, just with the padding that's included here. It feels a little more substantial than the one on the Mini MLC, but I do prefer the back panel on the Mini MLC, and one of the biggest reasons for that is the luggage pass-through. So with the Daylite, you have this design where this can tend to poke into your back a little bit, whereas the one on the Mini MLC, I just haven't noticed that as much. This does come up, but as I was wearing it, I never really felt it, whereas I did sometimes feel it with the Daylite. I do like that they both include a luggage pass-through, and so with the Mini MLC, you have the ability to rest the bag on its side. Kind of pairs nicely with the fact that you have the side handle, whereas the Daylite has the vertical orientation so that you can stand the bag up, reach in and grab your laptop. I do prefer that orientation, and so there's a lot of different things to consider as far as the back panel and the luggage pass-through, if that's a feature that you use. With the Mini MLC, one of the biggest differentiators on the harness though is the fact that it does include a waist strap that integrates nicely with the bag, and so that's going to give you some extra support if you're carrying a lot of weight. It'll help ease some of that from your shoulders. And then another cool aspect is that you can actually hide the straps away. And so this will be great if you want to use this more in briefcase mode, or just to make it easier to store in an overhead compartment. But because you have this waist strap, it also doubles as a shoulder strap that you can attach to allow you to use this as a duffel shoulder style bag. And so that flexibility has been really cool to see. I've always thought this is such a unique and creative solution to be able to kind of have that dual use case for the waist strap and have the flexibility to hide the straps away. Most of the time, I still use this more as a backpack, but if you're looking for some extra flexibility, that is an area where the Mini MLC stands out. Jumping into the organizational options, both of these have a fairly minimal but useful organizational layout. Starting with the MLC, you have a quick access pocket at the top, so this is always going to be very easy to just reach down and grab items while I'm on the go, and so you have a good amount of space here. It does poke into the main compartment, but I've always been able to use it to hold things like my charging cables, my AirPods. This also has enough space for something like my sunglasses if I wanted to use it for that. And on the Daylite, you have a zippered compartment that's pretty simple, and again, similar spot where I would toss in something like my headphones and my charging cable. There is some extra space there. You can see, there is enough space for those types of items. Anything bulkier will start to kind of press up against the front of the bag, but to me, they serve kind of a similar purpose. And then with the Daylite, you have another quick access pocket above that that's gonna offer a nice amount of capacity for something like sunglasses, charging cables, maybe a smaller pouch. I like that this does have some volume to it. And then you have some built-in organization on the back, a couple of slip pockets, smaller slots for a pen, a stylus. Here I have a flashlight, a little lanyard with a clip. And so simple, but very useful. And then for the Mini MLC, where you get some added organization is in the separate compartment that they have for the laptop and tech storage. And so that's something that is not present on the Daylite backpack. The laptop storage is integrated into the main area. And so that's one of the things that I like more about the Mini MLC. In general, I always prefer to have a separate laptop compartment. And so the implementation here with the Mini MLC is well done. You have dedicated tablet and laptop sleeves. They offer a good amount of padding, and most importantly, they are suspended off the bottom of the ground. So when you place your bag down, it doesn't feel like they're making contact. And so nice amount of space for my iPad mini in that front sleeve. And then you have a Velcro flap to help make sure that the device doesn't fall out if you open this all the way up. And this is able to handle my 14-inch MacBook Pro without any issues. On the other side, you have some extra organizational options. So this kind of takes the place of that top quick access pocket that the Daylite has. So you have a couple of slip pockets here. You have a little lanyard with a clip for your keys. A pocket that's a little more padded where you could store your phone, a hard drive. I just have my mouse in there at the moment. Some smaller slots to store something like a pen, stylus, and then some good slip pockets here that have a nice amount of elasticity. I love this style to hold something like a charging block. Here's my USB-C hub. And then you have a zippered pocket at the bottom that I'm using to hold the cables that would go with that hub, just to kind of showcase the amount of space that each of these will offer. So nice to have kind of a separate area for all of these items, a little bit of a different implementation from what the Daylite did. And as far as the laptop sleeve in the Daylite, you do have external access. You have this zipper at the top that will allow you to reach in and access the compartment and your device, but it can be a little bit just less smooth to get to your device because you might have your items that are packed into the main area kind of blocking this area to reach down and get to the sleeve. And so we'll take a closer look at this when we get into the main compartment, but I'll go ahead and toss my laptop in here since I have it open. And so you can see that I can slide it in and I can grab it, but I just need to kind of make sure to move the items that are here out of the way to be able to access it. And so moving into the main compartments for the bags, both of these have, a really travel-friendly layout. And so I'll go ahead and start with the Mini MLC. This has a clamshell style opening, and I love this layout in general. This is my preferred sort of travel setup. It's just a big opening like this that leads into a large open space. And so with 30 liters, this has always held more than I've expected it to because of the fact that it's not super rigid and it's a very simple layout. So that's one of the reasons I really like this bag, because it doesn't look super big, but it holds, a deceptive amount. And so at the moment in here, I have a packable jacket, I have an extra pair of shoes, some Toms in a packing cube, and then you have the zippered mesh divider here, where I'm just storing a couple of different cubes and pouches. I have a Peak Design pouch here. I have an Evergoods packing cube that's opened up flat. And then I have my Air toiletry bag, as well as an Arkido packing cube. All of that fit in there without any issue. It still didn't feel like the bag was exploding or anything like that. And then you have the quick access pocket here. You can see it poking in. So if I were to store something a little bit bulkier, it will take up some volume, but generally this is a really useful, simple, and flexible layout. And then one thing that I've also, really enjoyed is the fact that you can actually tuck this zippered mesh away. There's a little pocket at the bottom. And so if you're using this as more of a daily bag, you can just kind of hide that away, and then it'll, be easy to get to your everyday items if you don't want to have to deal with that. And the other thing that you have in this main section for the Mini MLC is these two zippered compartments, which I've always really liked as well. They offer a good amount of volume. They actually extend towards the outside here. So even if you pack the main area out, you can still use these compartments, which is always an important factor for me with this type of pocket, so that you don't have to make trade-offs with what you store in the main area. And so they can hold bulkier items like cables, pouches, toiletry bags. So you have a lot of flexibility. And then the good thing here is that because of the way that the zippers are oriented, if you're using this as a brief or as a shoulder bag, you can reach in and access these so that you can get to what you need without any issues. And so really just thoughtful design. I've always thought that everything worked very nicely on the Mini MLC. I continue to use this bag regularly. And so I will come back around to the Daylite next. And this one has more of a suitcase style opening. And so it's still a very travel friendly layout. You also have the ability to lock the zippers on the main compartment, which is nice to have that extra bit of deterrence. And so opening this up, you can see that you have the suitcase style opening, and this right now is compressed. So this doesn't even capture the full capacity that this bag offers. So if I were to, want to have some extra space, I have the zipper that comes all the way around, and we'll take it to 32 liters. Before I do that though, I will showcase what is just currently here with it compressed. So I have my Peak Design packing cube, a packing cube with an extra pair of shoes, some Toms. I have an air pouch, which can be a toiletry bag, tech pouch, and then I also have a Peak Design compressible packing cube, and all of that fit in there without any issues. Now with the compartment empty, you can see on the inside you have a compression strap to help secure things down, which I don't think is completely necessary, but I suppose it's nice to have. And then you can get a look at the padded laptop sleeve on the back. And so this does feel like it offers some padding. I like that it is pulled up off the bottom of the ground, so your device is going to be protected. And you can get it out from the inside, but it's not super convenient experience, particularly if you have a larger laptop. It's still easier to just grab it from the top. And so, I think that this gets the job done. As I've mentioned in other videos, I just typically prefer for this to be separate from the main area. But, it works well here, particularly if you're somebody who doesn't travel with a laptop, doesn't take up as much space. And then you have a little pocket here at the top that'll be a good spot to store an air tag or something similar. And so, still a really great travel-friendly layout here. On the lid, you have just a zippered mesh compartment that will provide some separation for anything that you want to be able to access, like jacket, socks, underwear, maybe some toiletries. And so, simple but useful layout here. And as I was saying earlier, you do have the ability to expand this out to 32 liters. So go ahead and do that now. And I already feel like I was holding more than I would need to with the bag. And so it's just a nice bonus if you're traveling and pick up some extra stuff, or it's a longer trip. That's where the expandability can really kind of come in handy. And so go ahead and toss the items that I had in there originally. Zip this up, then that extra pair of shoes. And so this is kind of how things were loaded. I also had the tech pouch, but because of the expansion, I could now potentially add in an additional packing cube. This is the one that was actually in the Patagonia bag, and I can slip this in here and I'll be able to close this up without any problems. I could probably add some extra stuff, but feels like this kind of gets the demonstration across of how that expansion really allows you to store quite a bit more in a bag that was already surprisingly capable. And so the last thing I want to do with the loadouts is just kind of shift the packing cubes that I had in the Daylite to the Mini MLC, so we have a true comparison of the Peak Design cubes, which so many people are familiar with those that it's just a helpful reference, hopefully. And so here, this one can handle both of the small and the medium cube from Peak Design. And then had the additional pair of shoes, the toiletry bag. And so these were the items that were packed into the Mini MLC when it was compressed. And then I can also toss in the pouch that I had here. And I could toss in an extra pair of shoes. The other packing cube, I think that starts to get a little tight with this. Can potentially work. Let me see if it'll close. So if I zip that up, this is more than I would normally pack into the Mini MLC, just because I try to keep things more minimal, but it does work. So that's why, as I mentioned earlier, the Mini MLC just is deceptive with how much it can hold. If you pack it like this, it might make it trickier to use those zippered pockets that were on the lid. You can see that there's still a little bit of capacity where you could squeeze some items in. It might also start to press up against the laptop and the things that are on the back here. And so there'll be some trade-offs that you have to make. But if you're just looking purely for something that's gonna hold your clothing and travel-focused items, this is pretty close compared to even the expanded version of the Daylite. And so both of these capacity-wise are going to be very flexible, versatile, and I think the biggest differentiator is just going to be the height, with the fact that the Mini MLC is taller than the Daylite, and then just the expansion capabilities of the Daylite feels like it provides a little extra flexibility, which is nice. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the pricing, as there is quite a big difference between the two bags. The Daylite comes in at around $100, and the Mini MLC comes in at around $200, so almost twice as much as the Daylite. Now, the Daylite has always surprised me that it comes in at the price that it does. It is, a truly incredible value, and if price alone is your main focus, then it's no contest there. I think that the Daylite is going to win out with that big of a price difference, and it doesn't feel like you're making a lot of sacrifices as far as quality or capacity. It actually feels like you get some extra benefits with the flexibility that the expansion provides. Now, with Patagonia in general, their bags come with a little bit of a premium. You know, Osprey's bags I've always thought just good, you know, options in general as far as the pricing and value. Patagonia's bags, I am a fan of, you know, Patagonia's products, their company, and so, you know, that's one of the things I kind of accept with their gear is that they do carry that extra pricing. It does feel like you get, you know, some nice added functionality as far as the included waist strap, the flexibility with the harness system, and, you know, the separate laptop compartment area, I think also adds a lot of benefit. Whether it makes up the difference of price between the two bags, you know, I would think that'll come down to your preferences, but generally I feel like the Daylite is gonna be a stronger value over the Mini MLC. And, you know, if you separate the price, beyond that, both of them are just fantastic, versatile bags. You know, if you're looking for something that's a little bit more EDC friendly, as I've talked about throughout the video, I think the Daylite is gonna be the winner there. It's just smaller, more manageable. And, you know, I think the layout is also very daily carry friendly. You also get the extra water bottle pocket, which might be nice. And then, you know, the harness system has the luggage pass-through that's oriented in a different manner. And with the Mini MLC, I think that if you're looking for a more kind of pure travel bag, this is gonna be a better option as far as keeping things simpler, having a main compartment that is gonna be able to hold a ton of stuff. It can still work for day to day, but it's just a little larger and it doesn't feel like it works quite as well as an EDC bag. But, you know, I've enjoyed using it a lot. The harness system has been great. And again, the dedicated laptop compartment is gonna be a big differentiator for this. And so even with those differences in mind, these continue to be two of my most recommended bags. I continue to use these regularly, and regardless of which one you go with, you're gonna get an awesome, versatile, minimal travel bag. And so that's it. Those are some of the similarities and differences between the Patagonia Mini MLC and the Osprey Daylite 26+6. Hopefully this video was helpful, and if you have any questions on anything that I covered in the video or suggestions for similar bags that I should check out, as always, please let me know in the comments. And I'll make sure to include links in the description below to the dedicated reviews that I've done for each of these bags, as well as to some of the other comparison videos and roundup videos that I've done, where I've talked about some of my favorite minimal travel bags, favorite personal item bags, tech and EDC bags. So lots of different ones if you're interested in bags that are gonna be similar to these. And if you have ideas for other roundup videos that you'd like to see, please let me know about those as well. And I wanna thank you for watching and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming videos, and we'll see you in the next one.